Morning friends, happy Saturday, how the heck you doing? And the narrative of where Kate actually was during her cancer treatment is falling apart, just as we thought it would do, because the royal family have kept the revenue and the income and the gravy train going through deflection and deception for decades. Why Middleton Manor was the best kept secret for Princess Kate's cancer recovery. Prince William's wife moved out of her family home during the recovery period. This is at a time when William was portrayed as this loyal husband and father looking after Kate and doing the school run every day. Clearly not the case. I assume Kate moved in with her parents and took the children with her. Why would any married woman leave a loving family home that she shared with her husband and children to go to her parents during her cancer recovery? I'm sorry, it just does not make sense in any way whatsoever. It's not as though the parents have a bigger home or a more secure home or a home that's closer to nature or closer to the hospital. This just does not make sense in any way whatsoever. And the media are turning from being supportive of the pantomime, of the theatre, of the deflection, of the deception, they're migrating to coming round to telling the actual truth. And this wasn't the only journalist or media title to report this. It's now being covered more extensively than it has before. Make it make sense for me, guys, because it just doesn't. The story's fallen apart because it wasn't true in the first place, and we all know that things that are not true get discovered eventually, even if it's decades later. Why would she do that if the theatre, if the pantomime we're all being fed about this happy family is true? It's not true, is it?
So the real reason why Kate Middleton couldn't come out and actually say that she had a nervous breakdown is that it would have ended the monarchy. The palace realised that William wanted a separation from his wife Kate. He didn't love her anymore, he'd had enough. And on the 28th of December, either Kate panicked and said, no, you can't do this to me, you can't ask for a separation, I've worked so hard to get here, you can't do this to me, you're going to make me look like a complete idiot in front of the British public. And either she was getting on his nerves and he struck her or hit her with something or smashed her side of the head on a blunt surface, hence why we got that huge scar now here. Or either she tried to, or rather she took some pills and tried to end her life, or she tried to throw herself down the stairs. One of those, we'll never know. But the palace said, look, this can't come out because it's going to end the monarchy. You're going to have to lie and say that you've had cancer. And someone said that cancer sounds better than Kate Middleton suffered a nervous breakdown. Anyone would say that. It would sound better. Cancer sounds timid compared to undergoing a mental breakdown. And they said that you'll have to come out and just say that cancer's been found. You'll have to put on a show and say that you're undergoing abdominal surgery at the London clinic when she wasn't. It was all orchestrated and all. It was a PR exercise actually as well, because people did warm to her and said how sorry they were that she got diagnosed with cancer when she hadn't in the first place. It was a nervous breakdown. And I think this is a sad bit. So many people have resonated with Kate sitting on this bench saying that she's been diagnosed with cancer when really it was never cancer in the first place. She's lying. She lied. And again, as I've said, she just sat on the bench and said, actually, I had a nervous breakdown because my husband wanted a separation, that would have ended the monarchy. That would have been that. But they couldn't have that scandal. So they said, look, sit on the bench. It was AI. Remember, the background was all fuzzy. And you'll have to say that they've found cancer and you need to go in for some surgery and then undergo some chemo. They had to make it sound realistic and genuine. Hence why we had, oh, well, she won't be back till 6 months, perhaps a bit more. But that's because she was in a mental health clinic at the time. After this, they put her back in and she was undergoing psychiatric treatment. Obviously, William's decision for a separation was not on Kate's Christmas card list. I think it really shocked her, and that's why she had one. I bet she thought, I worked 10 years to get you and now you want me, you don't want me anymore, but I'm not going to let you go. And it's almost like she tried to injure herself so he couldn't leave. And that's why there was a convoy of lights, because there's so many stories. Someone said there was a convoy of lights at Windsor Castle, and then they've changed it now to Sandringham. And obviously she took some pills, or she tried to hurt herself, or he struck her. And most people are saying that he struck her because a story came out and said what would happen if Prince William was charged with a serious crime that he committed. And someone said that was code for he hit her. And there was a woman in Spain, and she had a close connection with an inside source from the palace, and she wouldn't move on it. She stuck with it and said, look, I'm going to stick with this. I've been told this by an inside source from the palace that she was in an induced coma and they nearly lost her. And she stuck by that. She said, I'm not going to retract it because I've been told it. So all these people that say it wasn't a nervous breakdown, she wasn't in a coma, she was. And there was a time that they said that they nearly thought they were going to lose her. It was that serious. And it just shows that that dent on her head was the consequences of William striking her with an object or a blunt worktop surface. But again, it couldn't come out because the future king assaulted his wife, beat her to a pulp, put her in an induced coma. I mean, that's enough to finish the monarchy if you heard that. And this is why the cancer story had to come out. They said, look, you cannot say that he assaulted you. You're going to have to lie, and you're going to have to say that it was cancer. Hence why we had all this. This was a huge, it was like a diversion almost. It was like, we need to divert everyone away from ever finding out that you've ever had a mental nervous breakdown.
Happy Sunday, Squaddies. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Let's dive straight into today's story. Squaddies, let's be real for a minute. When somebody disappears from public view for months and the people running the PR machine give you breadcrumbs, what do you expect to happen? People start asking questions. That isn't a conspiracy theory. That's human nature. You don't need a royal press pass or a degree in communications to figure this out. It's basic common sense. If your friend normally texts you every morning and suddenly goes dark for 3 weeks, you wonder what's up. You send a text, then another. And if they finally reply with a vague, scripted, everything is fine, without another word of context, now you've got twice as many questions as before. That is the immediate fallout of an information vacuum. And when you're dealing with one of the most visible families on Earth, that vacuum doesn't sit empty for 5 seconds. The internet moves in instantly. TikTok, YouTube, X, and the comment sections take over. Everyone turns into Inspector Gadget overnight. Now look, virality isn't automatically evidence. 1 million views on a video doesn't instantly convert a wild claim into a proven fact. But let's stop making excuses for the institution here and address the root cause. The palace lies. Period. We need to stop beating around the bush. This isn't just about a simple communication breakdown or an unfortunate mistake. The public didn't just pull suspicion out of thin air. It was earned through decades of calculated palace spinning, selective leaks, cover-ups, and outright deception. When an institution has a long, documented history of manipulating the narrative and feeding the press half-truths to protect themselves while throwing others under the bus, they lose the benefit of the doubt. So when they suddenly demand total privacy and issue vague, contradictory statements, nobody buys it. Why? Because when trust is broken, silence isn't viewed as dignity, it's viewed as a cover-up. When official management disappears, gives zero answers, and expects everyone to just nod and accept it, people start filling in the blanks themselves. Human beings hate uncertainty. Give social media half a story and a shady track record, and within an hour you've got 47 theories and someone's cousin's neighbor claiming they know what went down behind closed doors. The palace can't operate like it's 1995 anymore. They act like one polished corporate-style statement will shut down the global conversation. It won't. The old system where the palace speaks, the tabloids print it, and the public blindly swallows it is dead and buried. Today, the palace speaks, and the internet immediately says, hold on, let's check the receipts. The real story here was never just about whatever dramatic rumor was trending on TikTok. The core issue is this. Why did millions of people instantly believe the palace was hiding something? Because they've given us every reason to. When a powerful institution relies on spin and deception for years, they don't get to act shocked when the public stops believing a single word they say. When you leave a massive, glaring question mark in the middle of the room, backed by a history of misleading the public, people are going to start drawing their own conclusions. And once the internet starts writing its own answers, good luck ever getting it to put the pen down. Okay, squaddies, here's where things get really interesting because the palace has a massive, unfixable problem. And no, I'm not talking about a broken printer in the communications office. I'm talking about something way bigger. They don't control the narrative anymore, and they are completely panicking. For decades, the royal system had a sweet little setup going. The palace would put out a statement, their preferred tabloid correspondents would copy-paste it, the evening news would repeat it as gospel, and the public was handed a single, carefully sanitized version of events. It was nice, tidy, and completely rigged. Everyone knew their role. The palace lied, the press covered for them, and we were expected to swallow it. But then the modern media landscape arrived and said, yeah, we're not playing that game anymore. Imagine being a palace spin doctor today. You spend 3 days crafting a hyper-polished corporate statement. You check every comma, scrap out anything remotely honest, and get 17 courtiers to sign off on it. You finally press send thinking you've saved the day. And within 30 seconds, TikTok, wait a minute, look at this hole in their story. YouTube, here's what the palace is concealment mode on. X, receipts pulled. That statement directly contradicts what they said 3 years ago. Creators, let's break down why this is pure propaganda. They can't control it anymore. The old media gatekeepers aren't the only ones holding the microphone. Regular people have microphones. Independent creators have platforms. The Sussex squad has millions of views. An independent creator can dismantle a palace PR lie before the traditional royal rota even finish their morning coffee. So when the palace speaks today, nobody says, oh, okay, that's the truth. We say, all right, what are they hiding this time? And squaddies, that is where Harry and Meghan changed history. Whether the royal establishment likes it or not, Harry and Meghan's decision to break free and speak their truth completely exposed the machinery behind the curtain. They dragged the palace's dark side straight into the spotlight. The secret briefings, the anonymous leaks, the cozy media deals, and the sick culture of sacrificing one family member to buy good publicity for another. Harry and Meghan didn't just step away, they shattered the illusion. They showed the world that you don't have to sit there quietly while an ancient, out-of-touch institution uses its media machine to destroy your life and reputation. They took their own microphones, spoke directly to the public, and proved that their power and global influence never depended on a royal title or palace approval. They gave the public the blue pill versus red pill moment. Once millions of people saw how the palace operates, throwing real work and real human beings under the bus to protect a crumbling status quo, you couldn't trick us into blindly accepting official statements ever again. We check the receipts now. The internet loves receipts. The palace can claim, oh, that never happened, and 3 seconds later the squad is dropping screenshots, video clips, and timestamps from 5 years ago proving they're lying. Oh, really? Explain this then. Harry and Meghan understood something the out-of-touch royal machine drastically underestimated. People are no longer passive consumers of royal spin. We are active critical thinkers. We compare the headlines, we track the sources, and we call out the hypocrisy in real time. The palace can try to control the statement they release, but they will never control the reaction again. They can choose their corporate words, but they can't stop us from exposing what those words actually mean. The royal machine is terrified because Harry and Meghan proved there is life, success, and massive global respect outside of their dusty palace walls. The Sussexes took back their narrative, and in doing so, they gave regular people permission to question the entire system. You can't yell at the internet and make it disappear. You can't issue a stern statement and expect 2026 audiences to bow down. The palace released the statement, great, but the public and the creators get to decide what happens next. And squaddies, that is the power they lost, and they are never getting it back.
Okay, squaddies, let's pump the brakes for a second, because two things can be true at the exact same time. First, Catherine is a human being. Her medical details are personal, and nobody, royal or not, is automatically entitled to someone's private health records just because they're curious. That's basic human decency. If your neighbor gets sick, you don't knock on their door demanding their hospital file. You don't stand outside shouting, "Excuse me, we need the full diagnosis by 5 p.m." That is completely unhinged behavior. Privacy matters, period. But here is where the palace is dead wrong. William and Catherine aren't just living private, ordinary lives. They are senior representatives of a taxpayer-funded public institution. Their public roles come with massive visibility and public accountability. So while Catherine deserves personal privacy, the palace PR machine has a duty to communicate professionally when a major public figure disappears from public view. And those two things do not cancel each other out. The palace PR apparatus wants you to believe there are only two extreme options: either tell us every single medical detail or shut up and don't ask a single question. Nonsense. That is a completely fake dilemma created by an institution that doesn't know how to do its job. There is a massive middle ground here. you can protect a person's medical dignity while still communicating clearly and competently with the public. Regular people understand this concept every single day. If your manager is going to be out of the office for months on critical projects, corporate management doesn't broadcast their blood test results. They simply say, this person is taking medical leave, and here is how their duties are being covered. Clear, professional, adult communication. So the real question was never, why didn't you reveal every private detail? The real question is, why is the Palace PR machine so completely incompetent that they couldn't give a clear professional update without creating a global crisis? When you leave a giant gaping question mark in the middle of the room, the internet is going to fill it. We've already talked about what happens in an information vacuum. People start speculating, and then someone comes along on social media claiming their source knows everything. What source? Your auntie? The guy delivering your takeaway? When the speculation went viral, the palace tried to turn around and play the victim, scolding the public with, "How dare you ask questions? Excuse me? You created the mess." Silence and contradictory statements aren't dignity, they are poor management. When an institution has spent decades lying, leaking, and manipulating stories to protect favorite royals while throwing Harry and Meghan to the wolves, they don't get to act shocked when nobody trusts their vague press releases. This is where the Harry and Meghan chapter changed everything. The Sussexes exposed the exact mechanism of how the palace operates, who gets protected, who gets thrown under the bus, who gets the sympathetic coverage, and who gets targeted by anonymous leaks. Harry and Meghan forced the world to look at the power dynamics behind royal reporting. Because of them, millions of people stopped blindly consuming palace propaganda. We watch the statements, we check the receipts, we compare what they said 5 years ago to what they're saying today. You can't operate a centuries-old institution in 2026 using a 19th century PR playbook. People have smartphones. The internet does not wait for a palace courtier to write a vague, spin-heavy statement. So let's make this crystal clear. Protect Catherine the person, absolutely, but hold the palace institution accountable for that endless spin, terrible communication, and lack of transparency, always. Privacy deserves respect, but privacy shouldn't be used as a shield to cover up structural failure and terrible PR. If the palace wants public trust, clear and honest communication isn't optional, it's the job. And squaddies, this is where we need to zoom out. Because honestly, the biggest story here isn't whether every wild, unverified rumor on TikTok is true. It's not, and we aren't going to sit here and pretend it is. If there's no evidence, don't turn it into fact. Simple. But there is a much bigger, more dangerous question sitting right under the surface. Why was the public so ready to believe the absolute worst about the palace in the first place? Now that is the real conversation. Because trust doesn't vanish overnight. You don't wake up on a random Tuesday morning and suddenly decide, you know what, I don't trust this institution anymore. Trust gets destroyed piece by piece, story by story, cover-up by cover-up. One vague press release here, one leaked spin job there, another royal scandal swept under the rug, and another anonymous courtier planting stories in the tabloids. Eventually, people start reading official palace statements like a bad corporate apology. Think about real life. If a friend tells you a lie, you catch them. 6 months later, they lie again. Next time they say, no, trust me, you look at them like, brother, we've been down this road. Institutions aren't immune to basic human logic. If an institution has spent decades playing games with the truth, feeding the media spin, and throwing people to the wolves, the benefit of the doubt completely evaporates, and once it's gone, good luck getting it back. The palace's credibility crisis didn't start with Catherine. Those glaring red flags were already there. This situation just threw a massive spotlight on the entire machine. And let's be totally real, Harry and Meghan are the ones who exposed it all. Before Harry and Meghan spoke out, most regular people weren't sitting around over breakfast dissecting royal PR strategies. Nobody was waking up saying, darling, hand me the coffee, let's analyze today's Buckingham Palace press briefing. People have jobs, bills, rent, actual lives to live. But Harry and Meghan dragged the palace's shady media tactics straight into the living rooms of millions. They called out the secret briefings, the double standards, and the sick game of protecting favored royals while smearing others. They showed us how the sausage gets made, and whether the palace likes it or not, once you show people how the magic trick works, you can never fool them with it again. Now we live in a world where the palace doesn't get to issue a decree and dictate reality. By lunch, the internet has already pulled apart their PR statement. You've got the palace version, the Sussex Scar response, the independent media breakdown, and the TikTok deep dives. By dinner, somebody's dropping a receipt from 2018 proving the palace directly contradicted themselves. The receipts are everywhere, squaddies. The internet never forgets. So when the palace asks for blind trust today, the public looks right back and asks, why should we trust you? What have you done to earn it? Trust isn't something a royal can demand just because they wear a crown. Trust isn't something you can buy at the Buckingham Palace gift shop. You build trust through honesty, transparency, and consistency over time. You don't build it by hiding behind anonymous sources, leaking to favorite correspondents, and expecting 2026 audiences to act like it's 1826. Harry and Meghan showed the entire world that there is life, freedom, and massive success outside of their outdated royal bubble. They took their narrative back, and in doing so, they gave regular people the permission to question everything this institution puts out. So no, We aren't here to turn unverified rumors into facts, but we are never going to stop demanding accountability from a powerful public institution. The palace doesn't get to demand our blind faith anymore. They have to earn it. And right now, they are failing miserably. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, Squaddies. Do you think the palace will ever get that public trust back? Hit that like button, subscribe for more unfiltered commentary, and keep standing with Harry and Meghan. I am your host, Miles. Have a blessed week ahead.